everybody is going to have the we are all going to have opportunities to actually give feedback during this event. And I also want us to know that this event is also being live streamed on Facebook. So for as many people that we might not be able to admit to join this conversation, I'm going to be inviting Dr. Oluseyi Soremeko, the National Information Officer for the United Nations Information Center, Lagos, Nigeria, to give us an opening speech.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. And it's a great pleasure. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. It is our pleasure to be part of this great event, which is in continuation of the UN at 75 activities for this year. May I first of all convey the warm wishes of the country director of the UN Information Center in Nigeria, Mr. Ronald Kayanja, who is unavoidably absent today. Uh, he had to attend to an urgent and an urgent responsibility from the headquarters. I also want to thank the leadership of the UN Association of Nigeria, as well as the Nigerian Youth SDG, for organizing this webinar. The topic, UN75 Ideas That Change the World, Human Rights at the Center of Multilateral Diplomacy, is very, very appropriate at this time. This year, 2020, is our year of 75th anniversary of the establishment of the United Nations, having been established on the 24th October 1945. Because we are celebrating 75th anniversary of the UN, we were very, very hopeful that we will be having quite a lot of activities this year, but this was disrupted and compounded by an unprecedented global health crisis, the COVID-19, as we all know. And this has a severe economic and social impact. We are trusting that we will emerge stronger and better equipped to work together on this. Are getting out of the COVID gradually, and the lockdown is being eased off gradually. We still believe that the conversation around the UN at 75 must continue, and then we are continuing it. And it's a great thing to behold that we have this conversation with youth, because youth constitute the strategic focus of our UN 75 conversation. And to mark the 75 years of the UN, the Secretary General has called for a campaign through a series of dialogue to build a global partnership to realize the shared aspirations for a just, peaceful, and sustainable future. The initiative is aligned with the UN General Assembly's plan to commemorate the 75th anniversary under the theme, Future We Want, the UN We Need, reaffirming our collective commitment to multilateralism. Then the focus, as I said, is youth, and we are quite happy that we are all living up to that expectation with this virtual meeting. Then, if if one looks into the Charter of the UN and juxtapose that with the theme of this webinar, one will realize that there is a strong correlation and congruency with both. So, for instance, the objectives of the UN set out in 1945. The three main ones include the human rights, the human rights and multilateralism are quite embedded in the founding objectives of the UN. For instance, the three are to maintain international peace and security, to develop friendly relations among nations, then to work together to improve living conditions of poor people, to conquer young hunger, diseases, and literacy, and to encourage respect for each other's rights and freedoms. and to be a forum for helping nations achieve these goals. Uh, if we take the second objective of developing friendly relations among nations, this is multilateralism, no doubt. If we take the last objective, the aspect that says to encourage respect for each other's rights and freedom, then we are talking of human rights. So invariably, human rights and all the associated elements, are the center of multilateral diplomacy, even at this time. So by 1948, the iconic Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that document was enacted and adopted, and it has become the most translated document in the world, having been translated into over 500 languages. So the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is the reference point on human rights, and that happens to be also from the UN. No doubt that multilateralism is under threat globally. You will all agree with me, and one of the reasons is that the lack of respect for the rights of others. The lack of respect for the rights of others constitute the major driving force, against multilateralism. And it is high time we all uphold and respect the fundamental human rights of others. Nations should do the same. As individuals, we should do the same. As communities, we should do the same. I would like to go back to the UN75 component of the theme for this morning's webinar, and that is the UN encouraging people around the world to organize dialogues around UN 75 as you are doing today. Therefore, we had the UN 75 dialogues together with a 1 minute survey. I know quite a number of you have done the 1 minute survey of UN 75. At least I'm aware Joshua did that as far back as February, and quite a number of people who are online. So I want to implore all participants to take the 1 minute survey of UN 75. It's a way of adding your voice to how the UN should move forward and how to address the burning issues of the world. Add your voice. And in calling for participation in this, the Secretary General said, no country, no community is able to solve the complex problems of our world alone. We need to come together, not only to talk, but to listen. It is absolutely essential that you all join the conversation, and we need your opinion, your strategies, and your ideas for us to be able to deliver better for the people of the world that we must serve. In addition to adding your voice, which is the 1 minute survey, the link to that is un75.online. That's all. I take that again, un75.online. That is the link if you want to add your voice to the conversation around the UN 75. Then the second campaign, which just broke just 2 days ago, is that your photo counts. Your photo counts. This is a campaign where you upload your photo and you can select one of the thematic tags like human rights, like peace, like justice, like equality, whichever one you want to promote, and automatically that theme will come on your photo frame, and then you can share across social media platforms. If you want to make your photo count, the link is share, as in sharing emails. Share.un75.online. Share.un75.online. So once again, it is my pleasure to be part of this conversation and to deliver the opening remark on behalf of the director of the UN Information Center in Nigeria, Ronald Kayanja. Thank you very much. Over to you, Mr. Moderator Joshua.
Thank you so much, Dr. Oluseyi Soremeku, for that beautiful um, one. We're really excited to be working with the United Nations to ensure that we bring in more voices to ensuring that we have a better world and shaping the narrative together with the United Nations. So with not much ado, I would love to invite our moderator to actually get into the nitty-gritty of this conversation itself. I know that we have all of our ambassadors present, and so the first question, and I'm going to be posing these questions to every one of the panelists, everyone on our panel, which is saying, looking at the 75th year anniversary of the United Nations, and in your own words, look, how has the multilateral organization, that's the United Nations, been effective in ensuring that we'll have sustainable progress in our world? And I'm posing this question first to Ambassador Akisoya. Hello, Ambassador. I think we do. All right. While we wait for Ambassador to get back on, I'm going to be asking Dr. Rosemary. It's the 75th year anniversary of the United Nations. Can you, with your experience, can you please tell us how you feel that the UN has been working to ensure that we have a sustainable world by with everything that is happening right now? How has the UN been responsible to creating a sustainable world for us? You are on mute.
Okay, I think I'm on now, right?
Yes, you are now.
Okay, so thank you, everyone. Hello, everyone. I count it a great honor and privilege to share this platform with the seasoned ambassador on this discussion forum. I think the United Nations has done well to a certain extent. It depends on the leaning or where you lean when it comes to assessment of the effectiveness or the performance of the United Nations. So there are those that are pessimists, for instance, who will argue that yes, United Nations may have been in existence for now 75 years, but yet one of the major reasons why it was set up, which is for global peace, development, and progress itself, has not been achieved or attained. But when we look at that, earlier in the beginning of the conversation, you mentioned that we may not have had the kind of a third world war. But there are scholars, for instance, who have argued that the number of casualties that we've had since 1945 to now is even more than what you had in the First War and the Second World War combined. So depending on where you lean, but for me, I'm cautiously optimistic in my performance, and as well, I think generous in my assessment of the United Nations. I think the United Nations has done incredibly well in the sense that many nations aspire, or those who presently do not have sovereignty, they aspire to be a member of the United Nations. Many of the United Nations institutions like the World Health Organizations and all of that of its affiliates, and of course, the United Nations for Women are doing well. For instance, today we have a number of international legal framework protecting different rights, from prisoners' rights, migrants' rights, women's rights, to child rights. You have a proliferation of international legal documents, as well as consciousness among nations recognizing the not just the presence of the United Nations, but also its role as an institution in the promotion of world peace and development. So to a large extent, from my own perspective and being a generous and a fair assessor, I think the United Nations has done incredibly well, though there's still more to do anyway.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Rosemary. That's really a very concise contribution. I think with my excitement, I was so excited that I did not allow you to introduce yourself to everyone. Please, can you, like, in 30 seconds, introduce yourself to everyone on this?
Okay, my name is Dr. Rosemary Pokuola. I lecture here at Covenant University. I'm a graduate of international relations from my first degree up to my doctorate, but my area of specialty are on gender, women's rights, related questions, and social activism, which I think I'll bring in later. in the course of the conversation.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Rosemary. Now I'm going to, I see that Ambassador Olusegun Akisanya he's online right now. So, sir, I want you to introduce yourself first, and then after you introduce yourself, you're also going to jump in straight into the conversation. 75 years since the creation of the United Nations. What's your perspective? Do you feel that the UN has been really has worked so hard to ensure that we have a sustainable world?
Well, thank you very much for having me and inviting me to this annual discussions, particularly with United Nations at 75. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Are you hearing me? Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Yeah, we need to.
You are hearing me? Are you hearing me? Yeah. As I said, well, my name is
Yes, I can hear you very clear, sir.
Yes, I was a former Nigerian ambassador to Ethiopia, the African Union, and the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. I'm currently the first national vice president of the ACAN. ACAN is the Association of Retired Career Ambassadors, and I'm also the chairman for the Lagos branch. The issues around the human rights and what the United Nations has been able to achieve in the context could be seen in the context of what is human rights. The human rights, of course, is the totality of basic values that everybody shares, either in terms of the individual rights, or even at the level of government, civil and political rights, and also the rights to development. The UN, over the years, so the last 75 years, with all the various instruments, the instruments on human rights, the instruments, the covenants, and then the various instruments, the normative issues around human rights, have been upheld to the extent that the acceptance of the charter for the conduct of relations between nations is enshrined in the charter that many countries belong, are normative issues. But of course, there are varieties in the terms of how it is applied and how it is taken in either at the international level or at the bilateral levels.
Wow, I feel Ambassador just dropped now. While we wait to admit him back on, that his internet is unstable. While we wait to admit him back on, Ambassador Ayo Lukomi is here too. So Ambassador sir, Ambassador Ayo, I want you to please introduce yourself and then jumping straight into the conversation. You've been in the UN system for a long time. So you're going to tell, I know you are going to say a lot of positive things about what the UN has done. So I want you to share, tell us, 75 years since the creation of the UN, how sustainable has our world been?
Hello?
Well, thank you very
Thank you everyone for your patience. A lot of issues with internet connectivity today. Dr. Rosemary, going on with the conversation, please.
Okay, let me share a few thoughts with you, and I'll share my screen. I have just a few slides too. to share, and then I'll share a few thoughts about what I think about the ideas of human rights and the factors that shaped, human rights question. Can you kindly approve me to share my screen, please?
Please, just a minute.
Okay.
While I allow you share your screen, please
now.
go on.
Okay, so the idea of women, the idea itself, particularly, it's a very potent force, a force that shaped human development, has shaped human evolution, has shaped human progress, and has shaped human connectivity around the world. Whether we are talking about the idea that there should be separation of power as espoused by Jim Gordon, or we're talking about the idea of negritude, esteem in human, in Black dignity and in Black skin, or we're even talking about, constitutionalism as propounded by Kwame Nkrumah. Ideas have always shaped and rule the world. We all know the popular phrase that suggests that ideas rule the world. But ideas do not only rule the world, they can also ruin the world. The entirety of the gas chamber, Nazi's gas chamber was prefixed on an idea. The entirety of the Rwanda genocide and several other atrocities that have been committed across the globe was because of an idea. So what are the fundamental factors or the fundamental beliefs that shape the idea of human rights in general? Numerous factors have shaped the idea of human rights, from the ideas of early writers like Thomas Aquinas and St. Augustine. All of these people have been able to propound ideas that today rule and shape our world. I read a book about a decade ago that suggests that dead men rule the world. And what the book was trying to really say is that idea of liberalism and free market that we talk about today were propounded by early writings of Adam Smith in his book, Wealth of Nations, or we're talking about democracy, which is the aspiration of almost everybody in the world today. Ideas rule and shape the world. Democracy is the idea of Greek philosophers. And so also is Marxism, that's one of the ideas that shaped the 18th, 19th, and even the 20th century. And there are some who have even suggested that Marx is one of the most popular and influential person in history next after Jesus Christ. So ideas are very, very important. The idea of human rights, for instance, is premised on the fact that human beings have dignity, they are rational, and they are people that are worthy of value and can also add value to human society. Sorry, can you see my screen? To be sure, I'm not just speaking.
No.
Okay. So let me just go ahead with the presentation. So what we're trying to say, what I'm trying to say in essence is that idea has been very, very fundamental to human progress, human dignity, and human development. And when you look at it, human rights itself is premised on the idea as enshrined in the UDHR, which is the Universal Human Declaration of Rights. Article 1 of that document suggests that says this: all humans are born free and equal in dignity and in rights, and they are endowed with reason, conscience, and should act towards one another in the spirit of brotherhood. So human rights is prefaced on the idea of human dignity and human decency, and that's one of the things I think that is lost to our world today. And so when we look at relationship between and among nations, it seems to me that there's lack of respect for humans. There's lack of mutual respect, we seem to have lost our sense of shared humanity. We seem not to think that other people are worthy of dignity, they are worthy of honor, they are worthy of respect, they are worthy of basic and fundamental things that are necessary for their well-being. It's such idea of devaluation and humanization of others that I believe informs such horrendous events like the Indian caste system and the Osu caste system and xenophobia and some other even disturbing video that we saw from Libya in the last 2 years of black slavery still going on in places like that. Or we talk about child labor, which is something that is really very disturbing. Or we talk about the Almajiri system. Just about 2 days ago, I saw a video, or I think it was a video about a child factory, a factory in Kano where children have been held off for the last 1 month. So if we don't think people are human, then we don't think they are worthy of rights. We don't think they are worthy of even basic necessities of life, like good road, water, and all of those things we can talk about. And at the center of this, notion of lack of respect and understanding of our shared collective humanity is the ongoing crisis around the world, where certain skin color has become synonymous with, disrespect, or certain, just on all something that goes on around the world today. So today you can talk about Black Lives Matter movement trying to fight for human dignity and human respect for the people of color. And having said that, I think one fundamental thing that I think is important to state at this point, and this was what Hillary Clinton said in the 1995 Beijing meeting. She said that women's rights are actually human rights. And in a society that doesn't think that women are worthy of rights, or they are worthy of dignity, or they are worthy of respect, you have all the kinds of atrocities and the evils that have been going on since this lockdown. And it appears to me that many states around the world have tried to use the attempt to claim to be enforcing the lockdown to actually commit the most heinous, the most disturbing kind of videos that I've seen, until it came to a point where I said to myself, I'm not sure I want to see any more videos of this. So if somebody can be in a church venue reading, and then she can be murdered in the most gruesome and most disturbing of ways, then I think we need to begin to rethink what we even we think of to be human. It takes somebody who has lost his or her humanity to put people through the kind of brutality that we have seen, both from institutional and even from police, and from every sources that you can imagine. So the point and emphasis of my presentation today is to ask us to begin to rethink about what we think about others. How do we see others? How do we perceive the very people we see every day? And until we begin to realize that we have, we are all human, and you see other people as human and equally deserving of respect, I don't think that you accord them the necessary respect that they need. So going back to the point and emphasis of this conversation, which is central, which is about the centrality of human rights, I think we need to begin to rethink the fact that human rights are women's rights. And until we see that, I don't think that much will be accomplished in the time in which we live. Okay, so recently the federal government has begun to prioritize the needs to focus or put attention on question of gender and sexual-based violence. Look at what happened in Abuja last year, in Kogi, where a female woman leader of the PDP was gruesomely, burned alive in her own apartment. Or the other lady, Loretta, that works with the presidency, was murdered in her home. And these are just the ones that make it to the news headline, the ones we read on social media and all these other platforms. What about those that we do not see? So the point and focus of my presentation is to say that we need to see human rights as women's rights. And until we begin to do so, I don't see how far we can go in this, in our pursuit for global peace and development and all of that. And lastly, I just want to say that at the core of all of these things, whether we're talking about human rights, women's rights, children's rights, and all of that, is empathy. You see, when people do not have empathy, they tend to do things that make you wonder if they suffer from kind of psychological disorder and all of those things like that. There's lack of empathy. And the greatest definition of empathy that I find out lately is the fact that empathy is simply living in a body and a mind that is not your own. It is inhabiting a world of others. And I think that thing doesn't even exist at all, because if it does, then you won't have somebody kneeling on, putting his knee on the neck on another human being who kept saying, I can't breathe, until then, he passed out.
Dr. Rosemary, please begin to wrap up.
Thank you. So you won't have all of this. And so the central point of focus is that we need to start promoting empathy. And secondly, I think that non-state actors, which I think we will come to later, need to do more. And then, one of the things we need to do more is to go beyond the promotion of women's and human rights in general. There's a lot of international legal framework. There was a time I think I was trying to do a research about the number of international legal documents that we have protecting different kinds of rights. There are over 300 of them. So it's not enough to have this international legal framework. What is important is, are they domesticated? Are they implementable in the places and in nations that ratify them, and that we don't selectively invoke?
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Rosemary.
When we're trying to, protect our own interests and not protecting others. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for that beautiful input, Dr. Rosemary. You were so passionate and so I think that after this event, we can actually share your slides with us, and we'll share it with every one of the participants on this call. So the next, we are going to be moving back to Ambassador Olusegun Akisanya. Mr. Ambassador, I can see your hands raised up. Please, you can go ahead, sir. Ambassador Olusegun. Yes, you're on, sir. Can you unmute yourself? Yes, please go on, sir. The question I have for you, so looking at COVID-19 and with the pandemic around the world today, how it has grounded our lives and it has changed the way we go about things. How can we build resilience and wealth within institutions and people that have been negatively impacted by this pandemic? Hello, Ambassador, sir.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. So the question I asked you, sir, is with the COVID-19 pandemic, the way that it has transformed our life, it has changed the way we do things. And we've seen that according to a report by the ILO, it says that about 40 million people in Nigeria would have lost their job at the end of this pandemic. So now the question I'm asking is, how can we build resilience and wealth within institutions and people that have been negatively impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, I think the first thing to do is to, one, accept the new reality that is facing all of us. And I sincerely hope you're all hearing me. And I will share the practical example of,
yes,
of the work which I do now as Director General of the Nigerian Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines, and Agriculture. One of the things which we have been working on is for government to work closely with all other stakeholders, including those in the private sector. One, to ensure that the stimulus packages which has been announced are working. Stimulus package to support households and also to support businesses too as well. 50 billion naira reportedly was provided by the CBN, and many of our members are, tapping into it. They have to apply. But we've noticed that 50 billion in the context of what is happening, it's too little. And also the process of release of the fund, it is too slow. So we've taken government up on that. The other thing, of course, is also to make sure that in terms of reopening of the economy and ensure that the economy does not collapse, that people also on their own part move on and, to the e-platform, the e-commerce. As I speak to you, a lot of, during the period of the pandemic, there are people in the creativity sector who, for example, went online to put their act together. I want to make mention of the specific case of Ms. Bolanle Austin Peters, whose performance, Kalakuta Queens, went online and asked people to join. So that's at the individual level, because people have to pay in terms of keeping their jobs, in terms of keeping life together. But at the end of the day, the most important aspect of it is, one, the question of ensuring that the paycheck is still there so that government can support the very specific area. Look at the aviation sector, for example. Close to about over 100,000 I think even 500,000 jobs will be lost. And government has announced a stimulus package to support them. So this is what we have to do in terms of reinventing ourselves to be able to ensure that, honestly, this pandemic does not result in become a catastrophe for all of us. So that's why on our part, we are also empowering our respective chambers to let their members move on and be involved in e-commerce, business-to-business meeting online. We've signed a lot of agreement, and we are in fact having something tomorrow to teach our chambers how their members can help in terms of having continued their business transaction online. I think these are just some of the ideas which I think we are working on, and I will crave indulgence of Yunan too. Maybe perhaps we can have a specific interaction with Nasima in terms of the whole question of the new normal, and of course work ethics, as well as business-to-business transactions too as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Like your contributions are very, very concise and straight to the point. And I know that Engineer Olabi is listening in, and will look for ways to work with Nasima to be able to ensure that we are able to cushion the effect of this pandemic and create wealth and resilience with the actions that we take. So yes, Ambassador Ayo is online now. Ambassador Ayo, sir, so the question I would have for you is also based on the actions that we need to take to first ensure that human rights principles, including the right to development, are the core of human progress and well-being. So what actions do you think we need to take to ensure that human rights principles, like the rights to development, the rights to education, are the core for the drive for human progress and well-being?
Well, I think one of the things which you do, and I'm speaking from the perspective of somebody who was also involved, like I said, in 3 of the UN headquarters, discussing development issues, and also be involved in articulation of various development programs. The UNDP, of course, I also follow the development, the work in terms of the UNDP as well. When those documents are adopted in New York at the UN headquarters, it is left for respective states to incorporate them into their own national agenda. Take, for example, now, the whole question of the issues of gender and development issue. The foremost international instrument in the area of women issue and development is the CEDAW. The CEDAW is the Convention on Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. Nigeria signed on to it. We also have the Convention on the Right of the Child. Nigeria signed on to it. We must domesticate, but not only that, and not stop at the federal level, at the national, subnational level. That is one of the problems we'll be having. We need to let states come on board too as well. The respective states must also incorporate all these strategies into their own agenda. The problem we have is that we have a central, we have a federal system that is so focused, you know, at the national level. We need to get all these ideas down to the state level. And I think the good example is the UN Sustainable Development Goals. I think effort has been made to see that it does not just stop at Abuja or at the capital. Respective states must also key into it. I think that is one area where we are lacking. So that the various UN ideas which Nigeria as a country signs on to and agreed to also incorporate and implement should go to up to the local government level. That, I think, is the only way out. And I think if you travel around the country, you will see UN pumps by UNDP in the most rural area to provide potable water for people. We must move beyond that, and also all other ideas, which of course are supposed to. So that's my take. I think we should empower and capacitate our government at the state level and the local government level to be able to implement those ideas. That is where we'll be able to have them. That is my take. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Ayo. the next question, I'm going to be looping Dr. Oluseyi Soremeku from the United Nations Information Center into this conversation right now. And I'm asked Dr. Oluseyi, so young people are the center of this conversation to ensuring a sustainable world. It's 10 years to towards the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. And I want to ask, like, how is the UN in Nigeria going to plan to work with young people to ensure that one, we enshrine the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and also the fact of how young people can work with the UN towards the Sustainable Development Goals. Are there planned by the UN to involve young Nigerians, youth organizations, civil society organizations led by young people towards the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals in Nigeria?
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Joshua. You are very, very correct to say that the youth play an important role in our work. And as regards the work of the UN in Nigeria and the involvement of youth across the sub-region, first of all, let me say this. Statistically, looking across the digital media platforms of the UN in Nigeria, we have established that the greater percentage of visitors to our page are youth. In fact, we have as high as over 60% of visitors being between the ages of 18 and 34. And that is quite significant. But if you, in the past few years, the UN in Nigeria, especially the UN Information Center, has been midwifing youth engagement in the work of the UN in the country. At a time, we are partnering with the Nigerian Youth SDG to hold monthly youth conversation, like a youth cafe, right? But talking about deliberate action, deliberate intervention for youth. Yes, the various agencies of the UN in the country have been engaging youth. The ILO, they've been engaging youth to promote the labor matters, especially decent work ethics. The WHO, the UNESCO, and all the agencies of the UN have been doing this. It is important to note that the main group that we are focusing on for UN75 is the youth. And we will continue to do this. And we kickstarted the conversation with the DSG, that's the Deputy Secretary General of the UN, Amina Mohammed. And incidentally, Joshua, you are among the youth that we engage with to start the conversation. So talking about the involvement of youth in the promotion of, especially, I think you mentioned the human rights. Yes, the human rights aspect of our work is very key. It's also a sensitive one, for that matter. We have been disseminating the articles of the Universal Declaration, even amongst youth, especially in secondary school and in the universities. We've been, the dissemination of UDHR, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, has been a major component of our outreach activities. Apart from the fact that we have translated these in almost 9 languages in Nigeria, including even though including Tiv and Idoma, Ijo, and others. We have been taking this to schools. We have been taking this to universities. Of course, we cannot reach everyone, but we have been very deliberate in getting youth to understand the provisions of the UDHR which is very important and very key. So we are also relying on youth, especially youth-led, youth-focused CSOs, just as yours, to also help in the dissemination and further spread of the message of the UDHR.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Oluseyi. So I'm looking through, right now, I'll be looking through the comments to see if we have something significant from participants, a question. Okay, so there's this comment by Adeyinka Daniel, and the question, the comment says that the government in Nigeria is not concerned about human rights, and it is painful that the UN does nothing but pump more money into the government that has no regard for the rights of its citizens as humans. So I'm going to be posting this question, this comment to Ambassador Akinsanya. What's your reaction towards this comment by Adeyinka Daniel, saying that the government in Nigeria is not concerned about human rights and that it is painful that the UN does nothing but pump money into the government that has no regard for the rights of our citizens? Ambassador Olusegun, sir. Okay. While we wait for Ambassador, Dr. Rosemary's hands are up. Dr. Rosemary, please, do you want to respond to that comment? Please go on.
Okay, I'll respond. Thank you. I'll respond to that question and also add a little bit to what Dr. Shuremekun just said about youth involvement. I think why it's important that the United Nations is engaging youth and giving youth platforms to engage with global issues and all of that. One of the things that I find really unsettling and very worrisome is the fact that it seems that there is no really room for intergenerational conversation, intergenerational collaboration to ensure the fulfillment of the UN goals. I think that as much as young people, we have the energy, we have the drive, we have the passion, I think we can also take away reason and experience that the older generation have to offer. And that's why I'm very thankful for this platform, because not just the fact that it gave me a platform to have my own voice, but also learn from seasoned ambassadors and people who have been on the field of international relations. I'm a scholar of international relations. I teach international relations from the perspective of theory and research. But you can't take away practice, experience that comes with practice, which I believe that Ambassador Olusegun. Now, to the question of whether the Nigerian government value human rights or whether they do not value human rights and all of that, I'm very cautious about deploying vocabulary to describe how the government relates with human rights questions. Yes, I think that to some extent there's a sense in which it seems to me that the government is not receptive towards constructive criticism or whatsoever dissension or opposition. It seems to me that there's just this atmosphere of fear, of uncertainty. I have a friend that I met in Nairobi, and I think he's also part of this conversation. He was very active, on social media and engaging on social issues, question of social justice and all of that. And for sometimes I didn't see him online any longer. And so I had to reach out to him and say, oh, I'm not getting your, public intellection about social and public issues, including governance. And he said his wife told him that, he has to be very cautious just because of what has happened to several persons that the government consider as dissidents or people that seem not to be in support of the government. So whether we're talking about the guy in Kaduna who disappeared and up to now nobody knows where the Diata is, or we're talking about the experience of Agbajalingo in Cross River, or we're talking about several other human rights and youth trying to engage the government. So, and besides that, you're also very, concerned about how the government responds to issues that concerns life. And to some extent, you may say, okay, the comment of Adeyinka is true, and to some extent, again, you are careful to maintain that careful balance between the government attempts at national security and also, giving room to. But I don't think that either is incompatible. I don't think that national security is incompatible with activism and social activism or opposition's response to government to government decisions and action. But I think the government needs to give that room. There's just so much, tension in the atmosphere. People can't speak their mind. They make a post on Facebook. The other day, I read about a particular guy who was just wounded up in Castina for insulting the president. This is a democracy, and I think that our ancestors and the people ahead of us fought for us to have what we have. And so I think the government needs to open up and allow for constructive dialogue, productive dialogue, constructive engagement. You can't be a government and expect everybody to applaud you all the time. People have to speak their mind. And in the absence of that, then people can question if the government really places value on life.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rosemary. Dr. Oluseyi, your hands have been up. Do you want to react to Adeyinka's comments?
Yes, just a quick one. That because we've been receiving such comments even at almost every engagement. However, it is not. It won't be fair to say that the UN is doing nothing about it or about the situation in the country. And let me also establish, first of all, that as I've mentioned that in this conversation, that the issue of human rights is a sensitive one, and it is not peculiar to Nigeria. Even the most democratic country, we all know what is happening in other countries, even the so-called advanced countries. It is there, it is everywhere, and the UN has been very, very fussy about the sanctity of human rights, the sanctity of upholding and respecting human rights. So, but when you say we still support the government with finances and technical assets, while we know that things are not similarly, things are not well on the scale of human rights. Well, you see, if you look at the National Human Rights Commission, which is the agency of the government on human rights, you will see that to some extent, to a very reasonable extent, they've been very independent, and most of the criticism that we can say, institutional criticism of the human rights performance of the government, has come from that government agency. And the UN has been supporting the human rights structure in the country. The National Human Rights Commission, we've been providing some technical support. Of course, our role is catalytic. We always strive to provide support to help the government to respect the human rights. And when we talk of respecting human rights, we look at the building institutional capacity to be able to protect, to be able to uphold, to be able to respect the human rights of citizens. And when we look at this, as we've been very, very deliberate when it comes to the duty bearer, which is the government in this situation, and all its agencies, the human rights duty bearers. We've been doing training. The UN Human Rights Agency is also in this country, so they're part of the UN country team, and they've been working with the government to ensure that the fundamental human rights of citizens are well protected. But that will not preclude, or that will not mean that we will now withhold life-saving support to the government of Nigeria, and by implication to Nigerians. That would be more devastating, because you look at the health sector, you look at the education sector, we must continue to provide the support to the government and people of Nigeria. Over to you, Joshua. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
I've been
you so
here.
much,
I've been
Dr.
here.
Lee.
In fact, the moment I started
right now,
speaking.
What we need to start doing is to wrap up. So if you have any questions, if any participant has a question, please, I want you to use the chat option to really put down your feedback so that we can. We're going to go around to all of our panelists for them to either take one of the questions or share their closing remark. So if you have questions, please kindly use the chat box to actually share questions or your opinion. I can see this message from Obasi. Obasi says that government's perception of CSOs as foreign sponsored opposition is evident, that the United Nations through the UNIC should be on knowledge advocacy and information for constructive engagement with the government. Hence the beauty of democracy and embedded freedom of expression. So this comment by Obasi leads me to our final question to our panelists itself. And the question I want to pose to our both ambassadors, Ayo and Ambassador Akinsanya, is this. What challenges and opportunities does the rise of non-state actors possess to global human rights protection? So I'd want Dr. Ambassador Akinsanya to take this question, which is, what challenges and opportunities does the rise of non-state actors pose to global human rights protection?
Well, I've just discussed with Ambassador Akinsanya. I hope he's unmuted. His microphone is muted. While we are trying to sort it out, let me quickly come in to address that question. One of the most exciting things that happened to me personally as a diplomat on the multilateral front is the engagement, especially
Hello? Hello?
Okay, I think Ambassador Akinsanya is back.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Hello?
Yeah,
we can hear you, Ambassador.
Well, it seems not to be hearing us. Let me continue. That on the multilateral, when you're discussing in the multilateral, you meet a lot of NGOs, a lot of international civil society actors. And I think in the area of human rights, they are all over the place.
Hello?
They are there. And if I can specifically make mention of the good in terms of the area of the environment, and I want to make mention of my own experience with Greenpeace. The Greenpeace was one of the international non-governmental organizations that helped to push the environment issues to the forefront. In 1988, the crisis of cocoa waste, which was dumped in Nigeria, was brought to our attention by Greenpeace. I was serving in the Palm Mission, New York at that time, and the story broke that some toxic waste had been dumped in cocoa. It was the Greenpeace that helped us that woke us up all to it. So that's one advantage. Because of their knowledge as well as their resources, they can help push at the agendas. That is one of the advantages which they have. And if you look at also in the area of gender and development issues too as well, a large number of non-governmental organizations are there to keep the government on its toes. So those are the good initiatives as far as these societies that they are con. If you want to talk of the area of human rights, Amnesty International is a very good example in terms of keeping governments on its toe. But the only problems which you have is that sometimes the non-governmental organization, from the perspective they are coming in, may not key into your own national objective in terms of there are issues of culture, which of course clashes. Take, for example, the question and issues of same-sex marriage and all the issues of right of LGTB, which of course is a human rights issue, sometimes will clash with our own tradition and culture. That is part of the challenges which you face, because if you're talking about women's human rights, including the right to their sexual orientation, question which you ask you is that, do women have the right to be lesbian? Is it accepted in our culture? This is of course debate, for another day in terms of the challenges. So the advantages are there for civil society organization. They've done a lot of work. They helped us in terms of movement from military to yeah. So
can you hear me?
They have the challenges and they have it. I can see.
Can you hear me?
Now. I can see Ambassador Akinsanya that is trying to come in. Let's see if we can come in.
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes, sir, we could hear
Can
you,
you
sir.
hear me?
Yes, I'm here. Ambassador, please, I think we're having issues with Ambassador's function.
Can you?
Hello, everyone. So we're
Can you
having a
hear
lot
me?
of issues with the internet connectivity today. Um, so right now we are wrapping up this chat. I'm sure it's been really insightful for every one of us. And one thing I want to make us understand is
Can
that
you hear me?
I feel that with all that the United Nations has been doing, it's all about working together with non-state actors for us to have a sustainable world. And we can look and see it in most of the things that they have done in response towards this with COVID-19 pandemic, how the United Nations in Nigeria especially has mobilized a lot of support for the federal government to ensure that people who are really facing the diet of need during this time, that they have palliative would cushion the effect of need at this time. And I know that there will be other conversations around the fact that is
Can
it
you hear
to
me?
everyone, but at least we should acknowledge that the UN Nigeria is actually doing something. And it's left for us, especially for civil society actors, to be able to put up state government, local government channels to their tools to ensuring that they do it right for everyone that needs it. So in wrapping this conversation, I'm going to be inviting our panelists once again to just share one last word toward this to wrap up this conversation. So, Rosemary, you want to go?
Okay, thank you again. So, thank you again. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I think in summary, I would just say that in order for us to really talk about human rights, then women's rights must be really central to whatever it is that we are doing. Because I think that, people ask me, why are you so fastidious about women's rights and other marginalized groups and stuff like that? And my concern has always been this: the moment people extend empathy or concern to women's rights, I think it's going to have a domino effect on other forms of rights. Whether we're talking about the rights of LGBT communities or the rights of children or environmental issues, refugee, and all of those other things. And in order to prioritize women-centered issue, I think that organizations need to start pushing just beyond the promotion of women's rights, really the protection of it. Nigerian government is signatory to a lot of international legal frameworks and rights that aims to protect women's rights, but are they domesticated? Is the court empowered to actually make a judicial pronunciation based on this international legal framework? And just beyond that, I think that it's important to also take the conversation beyond social media. So most of the activism about women's related issue or even police brutality or any kind of human rights evaluation has always been on social media. And I think that social media is highly elitist. There's still more than 2 billion Nigeria, 2 million Nigeria who are not even part of, active in the digital world. And so I think going forward, part of the things that we take away from this place is that we need to go towards to the grassroots. Those who can use our digital media, those who are not engaged in the digital world, to take advocacy not just to them alone, but to also begin to support institutional reforms that seeks not just to put in place a mechanism to address women's rights, but one that is transgenerational. One of my argument has been with my friends who are part of the Black Lives Matter in the United States. One of my arguments or my comment to them has always been that the work of social justice is not done in a generation. It's always an unfinished business. But one thing we always have to be able to ensure is the fact that the next generation does not start off where we started. They must, begin from where we end. And in summary, I think it's important for us to begin to also promote empathy. Empathy is critical to human rights, it's critical to development. If you don't think people are human, then you won't give them good roads, and there won't be good hospitals, there won't be better facility to promote their well-being and their advancement. And lastly, I think freedom is very important. Amartya Sen said in his well-read book, freedom is development is freedom. So if people don't have freedom, I mean freedom of expression, freedom of association, freedom to do their religion, just freedom in all of its ramification and all of its various expression, I don't think that we can have development. There can be progress, and there can be, that collective collaboration that we need among nations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rosemary, for that contribution. And I quite agree with you that we need empathy if we are going to be able to achieve human rights. And yes, on the fact that for every of the efforts that we are making right now, it's left for the next generation to be able to build on. It's not that they have to start all over again, because it can be very frustrating. So thank you so much. Ambassador Ayo, can you give us your last words to end this conversation today?
Well, thank you very much. Once again, let me say congratulations to UNAN for this. I think what we should continue to do is to ensure that as UNAN, we indeed try and bring to bear our own influences to ensure the practical implementations of the whole range of UN ideas for a better world. Like I say, the cliche is that let us concretize the abstractions. Sometimes those things could be abstract, but they have practical implementation, practical impact of our lives. So, and no other institutions than an outfit like United Nations Association of Nigeria, that can help to give practical meaning to all of this. Because don't forget, the UN Charter, it says, we the peoples of the world, and that we should have a connection to that as an association to ensure that we connect with the people of the world in terms of pushing those ideas. Once again, congratulations and thank you very much. I wish all of us the very best. Let the conversation continue in other areas too as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. I'm going to ask Ambassador Akinsoya to give his own feedback as we summarize this session. Ambassador Olusegun Akinsoya, sir. Ambassador Olusegun. Wow. So I feel he's having challenge with his mic because his mic is not connected. Before we wrap up, I just want to give a brief notice about the next step after this conversation. It's to also make everyone know that this event has been brought to you by the United Nations Association of Nigeria in partnership with United Nations Information Center Lagos and the Nigerian Youth SDGs Network. And this conversation is the first of many that is going to be taking place on celebrating the 75th year anniversary of the United Nations. And what you can also do is, just as we heard, go online, make your voice heard, take the survey just to share your views to what kind of a world do you want by the year 2045. You can also have a profile picture just to see what you represent, whether it's human rights, the green economy, anything, just to show how much that you're passionate about the world, and then get everybody to join this conversation with you. For next month, we'll be focusing a lot on young people. And so next conversation will be about young people and the UN75. My name is Joshua Lade, and I'm your moderator for today. I'm going to be inviting Engineer Gani Orulabi, the General Secretary of the United Nations Association of Nigeria, to give his closing remark and vote thanks. Engineer Gani Orulabi.
Am I on?
Yes, you are on.
Okay, good morning, everyone. We need to appreciate all of the participants. We regret the issue of technology. It's unfortunate. Ambassador Akisa couldn't really give us his words. I have to personally apologize to him again. Ambassador Eloho Otobo had to really take a special flight out of the country today. So we need to really accept his own apology as well. We've all seen that, look, we started well, but we need to continue. We want to thank Rosemary Pupola of the Confidence University. She's been very wonderful. And Ambassador Ayo Olukanwa is our own. So we actually have to thank him. And lastly, I must appreciate the effort of Joshua Lade, who has been very, very wonderful in this setup. Because without him, we couldn't have really achieved much. We appreciate you. I want to thank all the persons who really contributed, particularly United Nations Information Center, represented by Dr. Shei Shuremekun. We do appreciate you. And I'm sure, of course, the next step, as Joshua said, we're going to do more than this. And we'll definitely have to really rely on your support as usual. Once again, we thank you all and remain blessed. Joshua,
So thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining this conversation. We really appreciate you and do have a wonderful day. Bye.